Okay, 7, 8, 9. Now we get to the actual hard part. Everything's been easy from before. Now we actually get to the hard part. Now, resistances, I would suggest don't have them below the area level. Now, you can have some lower, but focus on your fire, lightning, cold to be as close to 75%, and necro void, and your physical needs to be probably about 60, at least 50, 60, but you need armor or dodge or a bit of glancing blow if you're playing a rogue or a build like a rogue. Now, these areas are to get you ready for the endgame. If you struggle here, then you'll struggle early on with the bosses of the endgame, not the endgame. Funny as that sounds, you'll probably take out all the mobs and complete echoes and do everything, but fail on the actual monolith completion, purely because of how the bosses and all that. So just be aware, just because you're completing echoes after this, even if you struggle, that's, in my opinion, normal. Now the resistances you want for this area, obviously you're seeing fire, but it turns into ice and snow, so you want cold. And there's some bosses with lightning in this one, and the next one is heavy in cold and lightning. And Lagoon will require you to have fizz, armor, or really good dodge, plus have an ability to move, as either use your decoy instead of you being hit, or you to actually move yourself away from hits, because it's a fairly fast paced sort of bit. This, I will skip the actual end part of this cutscene bit so you can watch it yourself. It's sort of a big deal part we're going into, so I actually cut the end of this cutscene deliberately, just didn't want to spoil anything. Now this area is where we start getting into, obviously, snow. You see snow, but these goatmen, if you play Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, but not necessarily the goatmen, but Diablo 1, the goatmen in that, just think of them, but even worse. That's the type of creatures you're running into. The spiders are always trash. They're going to be annoying depending on ailments, not necessarily damage. The goats, they have axe throwing guys, which if you have a low fizz or low armor, you can have max fizz but low armor and you'll still get annihilated because of how it's worked out. Because each area you're in, so say you're in a level 50 zone, you have 50 res, you now have 0 res. And that's just how it works. 1% per area level. So you actually do need armor and dodge and block if you're a block build. This is fairly easy, you're getting into it. The hard part comes in the next area when you start getting towards the matriarch and the patriarch. Now there's, in my opinion, an easy way to do the fight and a hard way to do that fight. I'll explain it as we go because it's easy to see the chaos that forms. But as you can see, you just take it slow. They do group up, and those axe guys can be a pain in the backside. And now you'll just run through the area. Obviously talk to everyone, do all that. Make sure you're getting your passives and your idols. Now this area is the area where you're going to spend a bit of your time, because you got side quests and you got main quest, and you just take it slow. Obviously if you built up the build to the point where you can march through a lot of things and you've been lucky with RNG and everything, then go as fast as you can. But just take it easy, see what's ahead before you start rushing in. These guys, got the shamans, got everything like that. You want to actually divide them. The throwing guys are like the archers back in the first act with the wing bird dudes. So treat them like that. These two. Now, look how complicated it is with them both. Now, the complication, I believe, comes purely from the Patriarch. The guy drops the ice bombs and does all that damage, and so much more that you got to concentrate on. So I suggest you take him out, prioritize him, obviously hit whoever you can, but prioritize him and then take out the Matriarch. As you can see, look how calm, cool Collector is after that one's gone. Watch out for that jump too. That's like a giga jump. Then you get the horn that's behind. This is probably the one of the acts I think they probably need to actually change up, make a bit more exciting. Like, it's got the story, it just puts you asleep a little. Too much exploring. Like, they're trying to build up to a campaign that's not finished, so maybe we need this lull before we get into what they've got coming. But at this point, this lull is just in a bad position, I reckon, as the campaign is. This, you just progress. You can run straight through if you want, or you can take out the things. The tigers are the only thing that are big deal. The rhino guys, not that big a deal by now, or shouldn't be. Now, if you're switching things up, you might have to redo some of these sections. If you find something you want to change your build slightly, or you sort of fall off on your build. Like the minions, I didn't quite maximize the gear like I should, so it fell off towards endgame. But this, you go into the ice cave, you do the ice boss for a side quest, and this way you want to take it slow. There's plenty of things shooting a bunch of ice spikes and everything. You can do that, come out, and then head on up. You got the waypoint, so you can easily teleport. And yeah, this is pretty much how the rest of this chapter is going to go. You're going to enter a zone. You're going to get hit by a lot of creatures, clear them, walk forward, lots of creatures. So if your build can't handle it, or you're not used to that type of fighting, then this is a good time to practice, but be aware you may struggle, because the creatures pretty much from now on will come in packs. I'm guessing it's to try to get you in an endgame mood sort of idea, but then it slows down for like the boss fights and stuff. So I don't know, maybe it's leveling, just in case you're a little under level. Maybe they've given you the opportunity to level up. And yeah, you just hit the pack, defeat the pack, hit the pack, defeat the pack, and then you run into this guy. He's fine until his minions turn up. You want to actually not just stand there and tank it if you don't have good res. And if your armor and that's okay, you still probably don't want to stand in front, because yeah, as I said, the res and everything, you're going into a level area where you're pretty much only going to have like 20% res. So you got to be aware of that as well. You've only got like 20-30% res, depending on where you are in the campaign and your reses. Now, the faraway tree, this is another zone where you just either blitz through them if you got that kind of build and you're over leveled or tanky, or you take a mob pack, beat them up. Take a mob pack, beat them up. Now, this is also where you find out where your weaknesses are. Because if you start getting in mana trouble, there's a great sign that you need to work on your recovery times and your mana and all that. If you start dropping in your health real quick, your ailment, your resistances, all that need to probably improve, plus your armor or your ward if you're a magic base. And yeah, make sure you get all the shrines still. They're important at any point. And yeah, as you can see, it just chaos ensures. Getting the Ari, whatever guy along this trail does help, because he does distract some of them towards him, but he doesn't do that much damage, so it's like a totem. They go play with him while you attack. This guy, all you have to worry about is him stomping and sending out little attacks. It's telegraphable, except for the stomping. You can be focused on just beating him up and miss the actual cue. But he gets stunned and all that by Ari. So you go talk to the thing, you come back, you talk to the guy. Or Gravel, or whoever comes help us. They're all the same people. All their names go together. Come back, talk to the people, and continue on down south through the door, and you are more or less going towards the pointy end of the campaign already. Even though there's Act 8, Act 9 you need to complete, you're pretty much at the pointy end already. Because you are either clearing or you're not. There's no real middle ground at chapter 9, 8 or 9. You're either trying to get there or you're there. So if you're either, you'll know where you are and what you need to work on. Just remember, resistances aren't everything. Armor isn't everything. The armor and dodge in a sense is actually more important than the resistances. Obviously, if you get someone just draining you, that's obviously a resistance issue. If you're getting like one-shotted, then it's a health, a armor, dodge, all that. You can pretty much tell the difference based on how your life disappears. And a lot of this is just running door to door, attacking things. And then this area, you go in, obviously. You go in a door. So, wow. Never thought of that. You can have trouble here. These guys don't really give you a break. So if you have some mana issues, you want to take this slow, because there is reinforcement after reinforcement. If you just run in, if you've got mana issues, you will run out of your mana quite quickly, and then have to run around in a circle trying not to get hit by the fire, the birds, and just, I'm pretty sure there's one other type that's in here. I just can't think of it. But the fire and the birds are enough to annoy. These guys aren't necessarily hard, but they're a little tanky. You take them down. The birds actually are more annoying than the main bosses. You'll find that a lot. You'll probably struggle to get to a boss and then beat the boss. Because the way you fight a boss is obviously different to a horde. So we come to Deep Harbor. This is another, you're building up. They could add some sort of thing in this last bit, because you're pretty much running door to door with a couple of little questy bits along the way to get to the crescendo of the fights. The lady you meet in a little and then Lagoon will is the build up of this chapter, and there's no real yay nay, like you're not pumped to go fight someone, or oh, I want to beat them up, or oh, do we have to fight them? They're actually quite nice sort of thing. Like, you're not engaged would be probably the best description. And for the most part of the campaign, you're not engaged, in my opinion. Which, it's a campaign, it's a story, you're either engaged or not, depending on how you read it, how you interact with it, how you do everything. But yeah, I'm not engaged with the story they're telling at the moment. They could change it up a little, switch it up, and have the same story but in a different way in the future. So in that aspect, I'd be looking forward to it. This architect lady, she's just a door blocker, really. She's part of the main story, but I just treat her like she's a bouncer that won't get out of the way. And you really shouldn't do that to like a sub boss. Like, just get out of my way. I got things to do. You should be like, oh, I'm getting closer and closer to having to fight you or your buddy or your bodyguard or whatever. And yeah, make sure you're crafting anything you're short on as well. Don't just look for the gear, try to craft it as well. It's probably easier than trying to pick up some of the gear, especially if you're looking for specific things, like specific resistances. It's probably easier just to craft them on than try to luck find a good piece. And if you're picking up pieces with resistances to use or try to craft, don't pick up anything with that double resistance unless you don't need any other resistance, because the ability for you to get them on and then craft up and then do everything, it is way quicker to start with a double resistance piece and then build onto it than it is to try to get that second one on and then build it up, then build the other one up. And yeah, this is probably where you're going to die if you got troubles. All you need to do is pick it up. You can die, but as you can see, there's just hordes of people, and you run around and using the dashes if you're using other builds. This particular build does have the body swap, destroy, whatever, transplant dash. It's weird, but it's still a dash, so you sort of get to it. And the minions do add a buffer. That's actually one benefit to having them. My armor is not great. That's why that crab almost one-shot me. My resistances aren't terrible that I can remember from playing. I do show my resistances later. After you get the things, you can die. So if you want to, you can run in, grab it, die, then come back and go through the other part, do the same, come back to there. Now this, if you are in trouble, dying a lot, or ailments, or struggling, take this slow full clear. This is a build-up area. Now, in my opinion, deliberately put there so you can level, so you can try to get that gear piece you're missing, resistances, all that, affixes, just experience for your skills. Like, deliberately put this here, so full clear it. This, you will be right where you walk in if you die to this architect lady. So you take out that, you'll know whether you've got the ability to do some damage if you can clear from that door to the boss fight. Anything here will follow you into the boss fight, so do not go and activate her. You can go talk to her, not talk to her, you can go into the boss room without activating her. So there is more room to fight, but anything you aggro here will come into the boss fight. Just be aware. And this, she, how best describe it? Play tag. If you have to do the mechanics and everything a lot, I was lucky that the way the build was at this point, single target, these guys were getting her. Now she obviously ran away and she fires these things. You want to come around the side and the back and then hit her and then run round and do that until you beat her. The lightning things that follow you around, you want to goat them in big arcs. You don't want to actually run short. This, you need to attack the arms, and then up until you get a full moon in the middle of the thing, you have to attack the arms, dodge all the mechanics you're seeing. The fizz, cold, lightning is important here, and armor. I don't have very good armor, so I'm taking a lot of damage. But if you got decent armor, you will do it better than I am. And then obviously phased him, you come down to the floor, you attack the tentacles, watch out for those. If you don't have good armor and stuff, it does just eat you. I was actually surprised how much I was copping damage from those based on the fact that I didn't have armor. I thought my cold res and lightning res would have done a little bit more, but obviously wishful thinking. Now, like anything, you just beat him up until he drops, do the mechanic. You do have to restart the entire thing if you fail once. So do take your time with approaching this, because you may end up in trouble if you've just rushed into this part. And that's him done. And up until the boss area, that's probably the hardest thing you'll face in 7 to 9. The temple like thing that the right now the campaign boss lives in is probably the hardest point. Before that, it's more, are you good enough to get there? And it's not really skill wise, because I don't think it takes much skill to get through the campaign. The mechanics, obviously, the better you learn them, the better you will be, which is a bit of skill. But for the most part, if you either built a build that's good or followed a build guide, and there's the resistances that I said I'd show, and all you need to do is take it slow enough for you to be able to do what the campaign asks. And there's no problem with being over leveled for an area. So if you are struggling, go back, level up more, and then come at it again. There's no point, like I said in the other video, putting yourself through the pain and anguish of doing it and being under skilled, as in your character, under geared, like if RNG's been against you, or you've just picked up the wrong things, or you've changed your mind on something halfway through, there's no point struggling just because you don't want to go backwards. Like, that's pretty much just silly. Then obviously town, you talk to people, it's fairly easy, the chapter 9 quest parts, because you're not you're not really doing anything but taking out creatures. There are some that you need poison quite heavy in this area. Actually, I will note that chapter 9 you do need a lot of poison. That will stop the degen as bad. But remember, the area level minus your resistance level minus the area level is your true resistance. So if you're capped, you're still not going to be capped. So bear that in mind. Now, the tankier mobs, they're not that scary. It's the small fast guys, in my opinion, and then the snakes in the following areas that are actually a pain in the backside. So yeah, you got just pretty much trash mobs all the way. You're running through, you're doing everything. And then I'll talk a little about where you should be focusing. Now, well, first this guy, you just stand right next to him if you can. Because in a second you'll see his next phase and you just stand next to him. So your end game, as you saw the big poison cloud, your end game will consist of running through different creatures of different ailments, and you pretty much can either boss run and go to echo to echo, complete the monoliths, or you can full clear, make the bonus amount per echo, and then do as little echoes as need be to complete the monolith. I recommend you boss rush. Obviously take it as slow as you need to, but you probably won't get the bonus completion part unless you deliberately full clear. So you go hit the boss up, take him out, and then get further and further and further into the echoes and get better and better stuff, and that's how I would recommend you do it. This is a little side area you can complete, and then you come back out or just forget that part and run straight through. Talk to this guy, and this is leading up to one of the best things in any game, one of the coolest, I should say, in any game. So as you can see, you're back with the birdies. Now the fire explosions are sort of getting me there. Now this bird is probably one of the coolest things in any game. Like, just look at that. Aesthetically, you're actually playing on it. Like, it's almost like a chessboard type game, but you're actually in a ARPG. That's got to be one of the coolest things in any game. And then after you land, I say in a sort of sense, you come to this. This is probably one of the most annoying parts of Chapter 9. You literally have to just keep face tanking snake after snake after snake after snake, and you think you're in Harry Potter. Now, this upper temple, full clear this if you're struggling. From here on, here to the boss. If you are struggling, full clear. Now, you're near the end, you don't really want to, you want to get to the monolith, you want to get to you will benefit from making the most now instead of struggling then. This you fight that comes different bigger creatures, and you just have your, if you can get through to here, you can get through that. Yeah, just armor or whatever your issue is will be your issue. So if you can get through that, don't worry. Now this lady, you run down the stairs. I cut that deliberately so you didn't see the actual interaction. You come downstairs and you get to go and hug the boss lady. This can be quite annoying because if you play games a lot and you don't have a disability like me and your brain actually works properly, you can actually react quick enough and not go and have a brain meltdown, because that's how your brain works. Now, those pylons you do want to take out once they pop up. You'll be able to notice them pop up. But eventually, and do not stand in the way of that ice coming down. So eventually you take her out, and then you take out the next form. Be aware there is 2 blood vial vessel things that she eats. And then you go talk to the other one that was at the end game interaction. And then you're actually done the campaign. But far from done the game. Here's where you excel at making your character better, doing the monoliths. So let me know what you think and everything, and catch you in game.